I've got my Simple Shapes drawing file open. The template is locked in the background, and I'm ready to start using some shapes to turn this sketch into a digital drawing. The first shape that we're going to use is the rectangle tool. Even though it might look like there aren't any rectangles, there are actually some interesting things we can do with the rectangle tool. We're going to begin right here at the corner between the tail and the body and drag out a rectangle kind of carefully, trying to match the sketch or the idea behind the sketch. And the first thing you'll notice is that things we needed to be able to see are covered up by the white interior of this rectangle. If you look over at the properties panel with this rectangle selected, we can see a lot of information and things that we can adjust about the rectangle itself. And what we want to switch here is the fill. That's the name for the color that's on the inside part of shapes. And we want to change it to none. So now there is no color on the inside, but we still have a black stroke around the outside that has 1 point of thickness. We're going to switch over to our selection tool. And there are these little corner options that are represented by circles. If we pick one of them and pull towards the middle of the rectangle, then you can see it bends the corner. So we can make rectangles with slightly rounded off corners pretty easily in that way. But actually, we don't want to change all of the corners on this shape, only the bottom two. So we're going to click to select this corner and hold down the Shift key while we click to also select the other corner. And then when we drag to the middle, we only move those bottom two corners in, and we can pull all the way until we've locked as far as it'll go, and let go. And well, we have the shape that we want for the body of the chicken. So maybe you can guess a couple more places that we're going to do the same thing now. The tail is also the same kind of rounded off rectangle. We could probably do it with a circle and cutting the circle in half, but I think that this rectangle trick is actually just as fast, maybe faster than that. So you'll notice when you draw out a rectangle that it always comes with sides parallel to the top and bottom of the artboard, or really the screen itself, I guess. But if we hover our tools a little bit outside the corners, we can see this curved line. And then if we click, oh, I didn't click close enough, we can do Edit Undo to get rid of that, or we're learning our keyboard shortcuts. Control Z is also going to step me back. If I want to make sure that doesn't happen, accidentally drawing a new rectangle, I can go back to my selection tool and then look for that curving. And if I miss it, well, then nothing really will happen when I click. But if I get it, then I can turn this shape so that it looks like it's ready to line up with that part. One thing you might notice is that when there is no fill in a shape, you can't pick that shape and move it around by the middle. You've got to grab it on an edge. So that's just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to line this up down here and kind of pull that edge in. And then remember, we're going to select with the Shift key to pick two of them. These top two circles, we're going to pull those in until we get that rounded off. All right. We actually have one more rectangle we can do. So let's go ahead and get our wing. Make a rectangle that's about the right shape out here. Go back to our selection tool and kind of rotate a little bit, and then kind of get things positioned just where we want them here. You might notice that I have some pink lines showing up and things are snapping around a little bit. One of the ways that we can deal with that if we have things close is to use our arrow keys to move things into the position we want. And then kind of those snapping markers don't bother us if we're using the arrow keys. Right, so now we're ready for our two corners over here this time. Shift to click both of them. We're going to pull those in to round that. And then just this corner down here, right, select it, click to select it, and then we're going to pull that all the way in. And there we've got our wing. So that is it for rectangles. We're going to draw all of the chicken before we start to put its surroundings in. Next pretty obvious shape that we have kind of just sitting there is the head. If you look up and down our tool options over here, you won't see anything that looks like it's for drawing circles. It's actually underneath the rectangle tool. So if you click and hold on the rectangle tool, then we'll pop out this menu and we're going to choose ellipse. And we can draw out all kinds of ellipse shapes. If you want a circle, then you need to hold down Shift while you drag out your ellipse, and it will drag as a perfect circle when we've got it about the right size. Let go, pull it over, and that looks pretty good to me. We don't have to worry about matching our sketch perfectly, so we're just looking for something close. The sketch, after all, is just a sketch. All right, now we're ready for some triangles. I'm going to click off in the background, off of my shapes, and I'm going to go back to that same spot. Even on our list, there isn't a tool for triangles, but we can make a triangle underneath this polygon tool. So there are a couple of different ways to do this. One thing you can do is just click, and then you get this option here to choose how many sides and what kind of radius do you want the polygon to have, and we can go down to 3 and click OK, and our triangle is there. That'll be one way. Control Z to get rid of that. We also can click to drag out a polygon, and the one we're making here is a triangle because that was the last thing we did. But if we hit our up arrow key, we can continue adding sides to this regular polygon until it practically looks like a circle, and down arrow key brings it back down past hexagon, pentagon, square, and then we've got our triangle. I want my triangle to be flat on the bottom, so I'm going to hold the Shift key, and that's going to make sure the bottom of this triangle is perfectly horizontal. And I'm going to pick a size that seems right, and then every time I go over to my selection tool, remember it pops out this little note that tells me that it does have a shortcut, keyboard shortcut of V. So that reminds me that I can get this triangle or selection tool with a V. This time I do like my smart guides there. They're telling me I'm lined up in a couple of places intersecting with that corner there, which is exactly what I want. Even though my triangle looks like it's a little bit too big, we're going to look at how we can fix that. So drop it right there. And so far we've been doing selection with the black arrow, but underneath there's a second arrow that's white. And if we hover over that, it tells us that it's the direct selection tool. So we're going to see how that can help us here. So our triangle is selected, but if we use the direct selection tool, we can pick just this anchor at the top, and you'll notice the other ones are not selected anymore. And we can pull just that part of the triangle over to line things up with the sketch in the way we want over on the right side. Then we can click on the anchor down here, and we can pull that along this line of our chicken here, right in line with the sketch. And then that looks pretty good. Maybe come back and pull this one down just a little bit over there. Even though there's nothing wrong with having the point of that triangle come up high, it's not hurting anything, but it's kind of going to get in the way of our eyes. So I'm going to pick this little corner option deal right here and pull that down. Not enough to start affecting the neck of the chicken, but just enough to get it out of the way a little bit. And there we go. We have another triangle for the beak of the chicken. So I'm going to draw that one out with my polygon tool. Something about the right size here. And V, my selection tool, drag that over. And then I might want to be doing a little bit more work with my direct selection tool. Might be time, maybe I should have been doing this already, that we zoom in a little bit, especially when we're working with the direct selection tool. It's going to make it easier for us to put things in precisely the place we want them if we zoom in a little bit. Forgot to remind you, but in case you forgot, remember that zooming in is Control plus, zooming out is Control minus. I'm happy with that spot. And I'm going to finish off the bigger shapes with the ellipses for the crown, whatever this little thing down here is called. So back in this same shape tool spot, going for an ellipse that looks like it's about the right size. And V for our selection tool, rotate around a little bit and bring it in there. Drop it in a place that looks good. And actually, I would be happy to have these three things up here be the same shape as the one that's down here. So one thing we can do that you probably know about already is we could have a Control C and a Control V. That's just going to make a copy of our shape and drop it in the middle of the screen. So I'll go ahead and grab that and pull that one up here. Get it dropped where I want it. But there's actually an even faster way to duplicate or make copies of shapes. And that is to hold down the Alt key on a PC, Option key on a Mac, but most of us are doing PCs, so I'll probably just use that Alt command. So Alt key, and you can see the cursor is changing if it's already hovering over the shape to like a double arrow thing, like making a copy of something, and we can just drag it out. And the old one stays there, and our new one is ready for us to place in a new spot. Be right like that. And then we can just do that again. Alt and click and drag. And get this last one lined up the way we want it. Maybe a little too high on that one. Maybe, I don't know, something like that. Okay, so that's it for shapes, but we've got some lines to place. Let's, those are actually also underneath this same tool. So we're going to do some line segments. And there's an option here. I can have this intersect with part of this circle. That's going to work out for me. So I'm going to click there and just drag out across to, maybe you can see that it lights up there and says that I'm connecting to the anchor on that side. So I'll just let go. That works for me. Maybe, not sure I'm getting this exactly where I would want it to be. So I'm going to kind of try to pull it back and have it connect a little higher. All right, and let's Control minus to zoom out a little bit. We're also going to make some lines down here for the legs and feet. So I'll go back to my line segment tool. I'm going to click and drag down to that back of the foot, and then zoom back in a little bit. Part of the reason that keyboard shortcuts are so important is because there are a lot of times, like here, I'd like to draw my new lines coming out of the bottom of this line segment, but I can't go to that place without it switching and wanting to select to that point. So you actually can just hold down the Control key and click to the background. You can see how the Control key is making my black arrow show up for selection, and I'm just deselecting everything, and then I don't ever actually have to leave my line segment tool. I just draw it and Control click and go back to this anchor and draw another one out. Control click, go back to this anchor, draw my last one out. Control click. I want to kind of duplicate these and drag them over, but I can't do it all at once. So I'm going to pick first my leg and Alt and drag, and then I can just kind of put those points. Even just with the regular selection tool, you can click and drag like that. And then I'm going to select all of these and Alt and drag those over, line them up on that corner. All right. I thought the chicken was done, but we have one more step. If you don't want to zoom out before you zoom back in, here's another keyboard shortcut worth remembering. You can hold down the space bar, and the cursor switches to a hand that I can grab with and pull myself back up here. I don't love the arc tool for drawing most curves, but it is a tool that's available. I will use it for this eye this time. So just pick a space to draw out an arc that seems like it's going about how you want it to go for that eye. And then V to, might try to resize it a little bit over here, and then we'll pull it over, spin it a little bit. Like I said, it's not perfect. I wonder if a little direct selection tool might. Then we've got these handle things to deal with, and I didn't really want to talk about those. So let's just Control Z to go back a couple of steps. We'll pretend like we didn't do that. Just kind of rotate this a little bit more and pull it down here and click. good. That's good enough. We're happy enough. It looks like a happy chicken still. All right, so let's zoom out a little bit, take a look at what we've done so far and what we still have to do. Maybe we won't do it all in this video, but I want to show you a couple other things that are worth trying. Back here in our polygon tool, actually in a switch, a triangle would maybe work great for these hills, but I just wanted to show some other options. So I'm going to bump this up to a hexagon shape, hold shift so that the bottom of it is flat. And then with my direct selection tool, I'm going to pick one of these anchors down here, and then there's this button in my properties panel that says remove selected anchor points, and I'm just going to hit that, and then I'm going to come back and grab this one, hit that, and now I've got a nice trapezoid. And let's pull that down here, maybe make it a little, get a little bit bigger. And then let's see, we'll do direct selection tool. I want to pick shift clicked, get both those, pull those in. That's how I want my hill to be shaped. So a little more rounded than the one that was there before. And again, we don't need to recreate the wheel here. We can just Alt, drag. Right, there's our second hill. So that's good. You might have noticed that underneath the polygon tool, there's a star tool. Conveniently for us, this star is going to be just about perfectly the way we want it. So we can pretty quickly just click and drag those out. If you are on your star tool and you want your star to be a little bit different, you can click and adjust the inner and outer radii that are making this star, and also how many points it has before you make it. Cancel there. We can also start dragging it out and change how many points it has the same way we change things on a triangle with the up and down arrows. So there's another one about where we want it to be. Hold over here. One more star. All right. Oh, we're getting so close. Our ground might just look like a line, but actually I want to make that with a whole rectangle. So I'm going to see if I can get, yeah, so there I'm intersecting with the edge and I'm lined up with the bottom of my hills, which looks good to me. I'm going to click and drag across until it tells me I'm right on the corner there. And then we actually will just go back to that arc tool to do a little bit of grass drawing. If you can't get to where you want to get because there's so many things it's trying to lock onto, one thing that you can do is go up to your view menu and turn off smart guides. Those are the pink things that keep on showing up. And so then we're free to go wherever we want, and it doesn't try to force us. And there are some tools where it's really handy. Right? So this is just grass. I am not going to worry very much about making it match my sketch perfectly. Right? Just something that looks like grass. I don't love it, but maybe we'll come back and fix that up a little bit later. All right, so maybe Control minus, so we've got a clear view. And it took a while, but that's it. We have our outlines of our simple shapes that are now drawing our chicken scene. And actually, we're ready at that point. Underneath this eye, there's a rectangle icon for the visibility of the template. We can go ahead and turn that off because we don't need it anymore. And there we go.